Shy waitress tricks billionaire to save his life. The truth shocks everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started with today's story. The evening was just like any other at Le Belle Poche, the upscale restaurant in Manhattan that attracted high-profile guests. The crystal chandeliers sparkled above the polished tables, each one surrounded by influential men and women, discussing deals worth millions. Amidst the luxury, there was one person no one really noticed, Anna, a shy waitress. She moved through the restaurant with precision, her soft footsteps barely audible over the clinking of glasses and hushed conversations. To most, she was just another server, but tonight, she would become the person who saved the life of one of the wealthiest men in the city. At table 7 sat Jack Anderson, the CEO of a major tech company, his $5,000 suit perfectly tailored to his frame. He sat alone, scrolling through his phone, tapping his platinum card against the table. Jack was a man used to being in control, used to giving orders, used to being the most important person in the room. And yet, as he sat in that restaurant, he felt an unusual sense of discomfort. His mind was preoccupied with the deal he was negotiating for the past week, and the fine dining experience seemed to fade into the background. He was about to send a text when a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Can I get you something to drink, sir?" Anna stood in front of him, a pitcher of water in hand, her eyes briefly meeting his before dropping to the table. Jack didn't look up, and with a casual tone, he replied, "Just a glass of water." Anna set the glass down and turned to leave, but something in Jack's mind clicked. She wasn't like the other servers. There was a quiet confidence in her demeanor, a kind of unspoken intelligence that intrigued him. "Wait," Jack called out, his voice sharper than intended. Anna paused and turned back, her expression unchanged, waiting for him to speak. "Tell me," he said, still not looking at her. "Where would you invest $1 million if you had it?" He chuckled to himself, expecting her to flounder, maybe laugh it off. After all, she was just a waitress. But Anna didn't laugh. She didn't hesitate. Her gaze met his with a quiet strength, and she spoke. "I would diversify. 40% into emerging market ETFs focusing on sustainable energy, 30% in mid-cap value stocks that are currently undervalued due to market overcorrection, 20% in municipal bonds for tax advantages, and 10% liquid for opportunistic acquisitions." Jack's hand froze on his phone. "That's," he started, taken aback, "surprisingly specific." He raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Did you memorize that from somewhere?" Anna looked at him, her expression neutral. "No, sir. Just my opinion. Now, would you like to continue with your order?" she asked, her voice professional once again, as if nothing had happened. Jack stared at her, bewildered. He had expected her to stumble, to be intimidated, but instead, she had delivered a financial breakdown with confidence. His mind raced. How did she know all this? What else was she hiding? He leaned forward, his tone shifting to one of genuine interest. "Where did you learn all that?" Anna glanced at her other tables, then back at him. "I studied finance at Columbia, but I'm just here to make ends meet." She didn't say more, and Jack could tell she wasn't going to offer up anything more unless he pressed her further. And so he did. "Interesting. I've got a proposition for you," he said, suddenly intrigued, but still unsure of what to make of the waitress who clearly knew more than she let on. Jack sat back in his seat, his mind racing. Anna, the shy waitress, had just shocked him with a financial analysis that most of his colleagues, high-powered analysts included, would struggle to match. He had asked her a simple question, expecting a casual response, but instead, she had answered with a depth of knowledge that didn't fit the image he had of her. A waitress with a finance degree from Columbia? It didn't add up. He watched her move across the restaurant, her quiet confidence apparent in the way she handled each table. She didn't seek attention. In fact, she avoided it, keeping her head down as she worked with graceful efficiency. But something about her calm demeanor, her intelligence, made Jack wonder. He finished his meal and asked for the check, his mind still fixated on the unexpected encounter. When Anna returned with the check, she set it down in front of him without a word. Jack, feeling a strange pull of curiosity, hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm not sure what to make of you, Anna," he said, his tone softer now, more thoughtful. "You're not just a waitress, are you?" Anna didn't flinch at his words. She simply looked at him, her blue eyes meeting his with an unreadable expression. "I'm just trying to make a living," she replied. There was a pause, and Jack felt the weight of her words. He wasn't used to people dismissing him so easily, especially not after they'd just impressed him. "I think you're hiding something," he said, almost to himself. "I think you've been doing more than just making a living." Anna didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke volumes. Jack leaned forward, his curiosity getting the best of him. "What if I could offer you a way out of this?" he asked, his voice lowering. "A chance to use those skills of yours. I can make it worth your while." Anna's expression remained unchanged. "I'm happy here," she said simply. "I don't need anything from you." Her words were calm, but there was an underlying strength in them, a determination that Jack hadn't expected. He felt a twinge of something unfamiliar, respect, maybe, but he wasn't ready to let this go. "You can't keep running from what you're capable of," he said, his voice firm. "I can help you, Anna. I can give you a platform where you don't have to hide." Anna finally looked away, her gaze shifting to the busy restaurant around them. "I don't want a platform," she said quietly. "I just want a life where I'm not defined by what I do for a living." Jack sat back, contemplating her words. He understood the desire to live quietly, to avoid the spotlight. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Anna's story. He had built an empire by recognizing potential where others couldn't see it. And right now, Anna was potential he wasn't willing to overlook. "You don't have to answer me now," he said finally, "but I want you to think about it. Think about what you could really do with your talents, and what I could offer you. You'd be doing more than serving food." He slid his business card across the table, the sleek, black card almost gleaming in the low light. Anna hesitated, then glanced down at it before sliding it back across the table. "I don't think I'm interested," she said, her voice soft but resolute. Jack smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. He respected her refusal, even if he didn't understand it. "Fair enough," he said. "But if you change your mind, you know where to find me." With that, he stood, adjusting his suit and preparing to leave. As he walked out of the restaurant, he couldn't help but glance over his shoulder. Anna was already moving on to her next table, her focus back on the customers. But Jack wasn't done with her yet. He had to know more. The next day, he couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. He'd called his assistant to have a background check run on Anna Matthews, just to satisfy his own curiosity. What kind of person was she? Why was she hiding her talents? As the information came in, Jack was stunned. Anna Matthews, 25 years old, had worked her way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs. Her education at Columbia was legitimate, and her academic performance had been exceptional. She wasn't just a waitress. She was someone with a future that Jack hadn't expected. And that future was something Jack wanted to be a part of. He knew he had to see her again. But how? He couldn't just walk back into the restaurant and ask her to join him for a business meeting. He needed a reason, a way to make her listen. And then, it hit him. There was a project he was working on, a deal that was about to go south. Jack had the resources, but there was something missing, a fresh perspective. A new approach. Someone who could see things from a different angle. He needed Anna. So he called her, telling her he had an opportunity for her, something that would challenge her, something that would make her realize what she was truly capable of. When she picked up the phone, Jack's voice was steady but urgent. "Anna," he began, "I think we need to talk." I waited nervously by the phone, her fingers tapping against the edge of the table. Anna couldn't believe she was about to make this call. It wasn't just about the money, though the $5,000 Jack Anderson had tipped her the night before was more than she could have ever imagined. It wasn't even about the sudden recognition that someone of his stature would want to talk to her, a simple waitress from a modest background. It was something deeper, something that had been building inside her for years. Jack's proposition had been clear. He wanted to offer her a way out of the life she had grown accustomed to. He wanted her to be a part of something bigger. He wanted her to help him with a project. She had thought about it all night. Should she take the chance? Was she ready to leave behind everything she had worked for? The simplicity of her life? She wasn't sure. What if this was a trick? What if he was just using her for her knowledge, for her skills, and then tossing her aside when he was done with her? But there was another voice in her head, the voice that had always wanted more. the one that had longed to make a difference, to use her education, her skills, her experience for something meaningful. She had been holding back for so long, hiding in plain sight. But maybe now, this was her chance to finally step into the light. So, she picked up the phone and dialed his number. It rang twice before Jack picked up. Anna. His voice came through the phone, calm and steady, just like she remembered. I'm glad you called. She swallowed hard. I've thought about it. Your offer. And I'm in, she said, the words feeling heavier than she anticipated. Good. Jack replied, his voice tinged with approval. We start tomorrow. The next day, Anna found herself stepping into a world she never thought she would be a part of. She had dressed carefully, choosing a simple black dress, something professional yet understated. When she entered the building, the sleek, modern architecture of Anderson Capital's headquarters was overwhelming. Glass walls and steel beams towered above her, and the lobby was filled with suits. Men and women with no visible sense of anxiety, no sense of urgency. They were all just there. Anna felt out of place, like a fish in a tank filled with sharks. She was led into a conference room where Jack was waiting, his sharp suit perfectly tailored, his posture confident as ever. He stood when she entered, offering her a seat across from him. Anna, he said, smiling faintly, I'm glad you decided to join us. This project is critical, and I believe your insight will make all the difference. She sat down, unsure of how to feel. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially in a room like this, but she couldn't deny the thrill that ran through her veins. This was what she had wanted. This was her chance to show what she was capable of. Jack handed her a tablet, and she glanced at the screen. It was filled with financial data, charts, and projections, everything she had learned in her classes but never thought she would use. We're working on a major investment deal, Jack explained. There's a company we're looking at, one that's growing fast but has some risks involved. I need someone who can see the big picture but also understand the details. That's where you come in. Anna nodded, her mind already racing as she skimmed the data. I see some red flags here, she said after a few moments. This company is overvalued in some areas, but the potential for growth is real. If we diversify our investments, we could mitigate the risk while still capitalizing on their market position. Jack's eyebrows lifted slightly, impressed by her immediate grasp of the situation. Exactly, he said. I want your full analysis. I know you can see things that others might overlook. Anna took a deep breath, diving into the project with full force. She analyzed every report, every number, every strategy. It felt exhilarating, like she was finally doing something important. Hours passed, but Anna didn't notice. She was lost in the work, her thoughts consumed by the challenge in front of her. She hadn't felt this alive in years. When she finally looked up, the room was almost empty. The only sounds the hum of the air conditioning and the clicking of her tablet. Jack was standing by the door, watching her with a look of quiet admiration. You've got a sharp mind, Anna, he said. I knew I made the right call. Anna felt a rush of pride but quickly pushed it aside. It's just numbers, she replied modestly. It's more than that, Jack said, his tone serious. This isn't just about numbers. It's about seeing things in a way that others don't. It's about having the courage to make decisions that no one else will. Anna looked at him, meeting his gaze directly. There was something about his intensity, the way he spoke so assuredly, that made her want to trust him. What do you want from me? She asked. Jack smiled. I want you to keep thinking like this. I want you to keep helping me make decisions that matter. We're just getting started, Anna. Anna didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked back at the screen, at the data, at the opportunity that lay before her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she had a purpose, a real reason to be here. This was only the beginning. The next few weeks passed in a blur for Anna. Her days were now divided between working at the restaurant and working for Jack. The change in her life was sudden, overwhelming, and yet exhilarating. She found herself diving deeper into the world of business and finance, something she had only dreamed about in her college years. Every day, Jack would present her with new challenges, each one more difficult than the last, but Anna was thriving. She had never felt so alive, so engaged in something that mattered. Jack, on the other hand, seemed to be watching her more closely, as though he were waiting for something, as though he believed there was more to her than what she had shown. Anna couldn't help but notice the way his gaze would linger on her at times, his attention never quite leaving her. even when she was focused on her work. It made her feel exposed, yet she couldn't deny the strange connection that was beginning to form between them. One afternoon, after hours of working through data, Jack leaned back in his chair and studied Anna for a long moment. "You're not like the others," he said quietly. "You have a way of seeing things that most people miss." Anna looked up from her tablet, startled by his words. "I just see what's in front of me," she said, trying to brush off the compliment. "No," Jack said, his tone firm. "It's more than that. You're not just looking at numbers, you're looking at people. You're looking at the bigger picture." Anna didn't know how to respond. She had always thought of herself as just a quiet, observant person. But here, working alongside Jack, she realized that maybe her perspective had value, more value than she had ever given herself credit for. That evening, after a long day at the office, Jack invited her to dinner. It wasn't a business meeting, just a casual dinner. She hesitated for a moment before agreeing. There was something about him that she couldn't quite place, something that made her nervous, yet intrigued. As they sat across from each other at an upscale restaurant in the city, the conversation flowed effortlessly. Jack was different from the CEO she had first met. The arrogance, the cold distance, it was all gone. Instead, he seemed more human. He talked about his early days in business, the struggles, the failures, and how he had built his empire. Anna found herself laughing at his stories, something she hadn't done in years. It felt natural, like they had known each other for much longer than they actually had. But then, somewhere between the main course and dessert, the conversation shifted. "Anna," Jack said, his voice lower now, more serious. "I need you to help me with something. Something big." Anna raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" she asked. Jack looked at her, his gaze intense. "There's a deal I'm working on, a multi-million-dollar investment. It's risky, but it could be huge. I need someone who can think outside the box, someone who isn't afraid to take risks." Anna felt her heart race. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The opportunity to prove herself, to show Jack what she was really capable of. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, leaning forward. Jack smiled, but there was something different about it. Something calculating. "I need you to help me analyze the risks. But more than that, I need you to find the opportunities that no one else can see." Anna nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. She had the skills, the knowledge, but now it was time to put everything she had learned into action. As the evening went on, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that this was the turning point. That this was where everything in her life would change. But she also knew there was more at stake than just a business deal. There was something about Jack, something that made her question whether or not this was the right path. As they left the restaurant, Jack walked her to her car, his hand brushing against hers as he handed her his business card. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "I want your analysis on my desk first thing." Anna took the card, her fingers lingering on his for a moment longer than necessary. "You'll have it," she replied, her voice steady. As she drove home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about what Jack had said. It wasn't just about the deal. It wasn't just about the money. It was something bigger, something that had nothing to do with business at all. And as much as she tried to convince herself otherwise, she knew that this was just the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Anna arrived early at the office, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with calculations, strategies, and scenarios. The challenge Jack had given her was daunting, but it was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been waiting for. When she walked into the sleek, glass-walled office, she was greeted by the hum of activity, an entire team of analysts working diligently at their desks, poring over reports and data. She had never seen anything like it. But Anna was different. She wasn't just here to follow the rules or stick to the script. She was here to make a difference. She sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and immediately began reviewing the data Jack had provided. The numbers were complex, the stakes were high, but there was something in the way the information was laid out that didn't quite sit right with her. As she dug deeper, she began to see patterns no one else had caught. Risks, opportunities, blind spots. She couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as she connected the dots. After hours of analyzing the data, Anna finally put together her report. She had spotted the flaws in the plan, but more importantly, she had found the key to making the deal work. She could feel the weight of the decision. This was her moment. She printed the report, walked across the office, and knocked on Jack's door. He was on a call when she entered, but when he saw her, he waved her in. "Anna," he said, smiling. "I was just thinking about you. Let's hear what you've got." Anna placed the report on his desk, her hands trembling slightly. Jack flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing as he read. The silence in the room was thick, the tension palpable. Finally, he looked up, his eyes meeting hers. This is good," he said, his voice low. "In fact, it's better than good. You've identified risks that no one else would have noticed, and you've found a way to mitigate them. How did you do it?" Anna hesitated for a moment, unsure how to explain the instinctive way she had approached the data. "I just followed the numbers," she said quietly. "But I also thought about the people involved. This deal isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about how we handle the relationships, how we build trust. That's what makes the difference." Jack leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. For a moment, Anna wondered if he was disappointed, if he had expected more. But then he smiled, and the tension in the room lifted. "I knew you were the right person for this job," he said. "You've got an instinct for this. More than that, you've got vision." Anna felt a rush of pride, but she kept her face neutral. She couldn't afford to let her emotions show, not yet. Jack stood up, walked over to her, and extended his hand. "You've earned my trust, Anna," he said, "and I want you to keep working with me. We've got bigger things ahead. But this is just the beginning." As she shook his hand, Anna felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about proving herself anymore. This was about something much bigger. She had a new role to play, one she wasn't sure she was ready for, but one that she knew would change everything. Later that day, as she walked out of the building, she couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. She had come so far in such a short amount of time. But even as she celebrated her success, a part of her wondered about Jack, about the connection between them. She couldn't deny the way he made her feel. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her want to be close to him, to learn from him. But there was also something unsettling, something that told her to be careful. Anna knew that she had a long way to go before she could fully trust herself, but she also knew that she couldn't back down now. She had made it this far, and now there was no turning back. The following week, Anna's world shifted once again. After her success with the investment analysis, Jack had been keeping a close eye on her. She had already contributed significantly to the ongoing projects, impressing everyone with her uncanny ability to read between the lines of complex business data. But there was one project, one deal that Jack had been working on in secret, that he had yet to share with her. He had told her it was bigger than anything they had done so far. And that day had finally come. Jack's voice crackled over the phone as he gave her the details. "Anna, I need you to meet me at my office. I've got something for you." She hadn't expected the urgency in his tone, nor the tension that seemed to hang in the air when she arrived at his office. When she walked in, Jack was standing by the large window that overlooked the city, his arms crossed. He turned to her with a serious expression, his jaw tight. "This is a big one, Anna," he said, his voice low. "I need someone I can trust. Someone who can look beyond the surface and see the bigger picture." Anna didn't hesitate. She had learned a lot from Jack in the past few weeks. She had seen the way he worked, the way he calculated risks, and most of all, how he used people. And yet, she wasn't afraid. She had always been good at seeing through people, understanding their motives. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. Jack nodded, and without another word, he handed her a thick folder. Inside were the details of the project, a multi-billion-dollar deal that involved merging several tech companies, but with hidden risks that could destroy everything if they weren't managed carefully. "I'm not just asking you to help with this, Anna. I'm asking you to lead it," Jack said, his eyes meeting hers with a weight of expectation. Anna took a deep breath. Leading? She hadn't been prepared for that. She had expected to continue analyzing data, finding flaws and solutions. But to lead? It was more than she had ever imagined. "I'll do it," she replied, after a pause, knowing deep down this was her moment to prove herself. The deal was complex. The stakes were higher than anything she had ever encountered. As Anna delved into the project, she quickly realized just how intricate the web of alliances, power plays, and secrets were. The companies involved weren't just business rivals. They were fiercely protective of their territories, their wealth, and their influence. And at the heart of it all was a battle for control. The more Anna uncovered, the more she realized how much Jack had been hiding. The risks weren't just financial, They were personal. The deal involved not only billions of dollars, but also people Jack had once called friends, people who could destroy him with a single word. The pressure mounted with every passing day. But Jack never faltered. He trusted her. He needed her. And Anna, despite the overwhelming task ahead of her, found herself starting to trust him as well. As they spent more time together, working late into the night, she couldn't help but notice the way Jack seemed to watch her. His attention was different now, more focused, more intense. It wasn't just about the business anymore. Something had shifted between them, something she couldn't quite understand. There were moments when she caught him looking at her, as if he saw something in her that no one else did. But Anna couldn't afford to think about that. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. Weeks passed, and the deal began to take shape. Anna had proven herself time and time again, impressing Jack with her insights and her ability to stay calm under pressure. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, disaster struck. A leak. Someone had gotten their hands on the confidential details of the merger, and suddenly, the entire deal was at risk of collapsing. Anna's heart raced as she watched Jack's usually composed face tighten with frustration. "I can't believe this is happening," he muttered. "This is bigger than just us now. If we don't fix this, it'll all fall apart." Anna didn't hesitate. She knew exactly what needed to be done. The leak had come from within, and she had the tools to trace it. "We need to act fast," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I'll take care of it." Jack looked at her, his eyes intense. "I know you will. I'm counting on you." As she worked tirelessly to uncover the source of the leak, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that she was in too deep. She had started this journey with the goal of proving herself, but now she was on the verge of something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. And as the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place, she realized that the real danger wasn't just the deal. It was the man who had brought her here. Jack Anderson. The man she was starting to care for, whether she liked it or not. The tension in the office was palpable. Anna had worked tirelessly over the past few days, following every lead, piecing together the puzzle of the leaked information. It wasn't just a leak, it was a full-blown betrayal. As she sat in her office, reviewing the last bit of evidence she had uncovered, the door opened, and Jack entered. His face was grim, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "Have you found anything?" he asked, his voice tight. Anna glanced up from the documents, her expression unreadable. "Yes, I have. It's coming from within your inner circle, Jack," she said calmly. Jack's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. "One of my own people?" He rubbed his temples as if trying to process the weight of her words. "We've been working together for months, and now someone close to me is turning on us." Anna nodded. "It's not just about money, Jack. It's about power. Someone is trying to control the narrative, and they're willing to destroy everything to get it." Jack sat down across from her, the frustration clear in his posture. "Who is it?" he demanded. Anna hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I believe it's David Mercer." Jack froze. His eyes widened, and for a split second, Anna saw something she had never noticed before, a flicker of fear. David Mercer was Jack's right-hand man, someone Jack trusted implicitly, someone who had been by his side through every major decision. Anna had never seen Jack react to anyone like this before. "Mercer," Jack whispered, almost to himself. "But he's been with me for years. He's like family." Anna leaned forward, her voice steady. "It's always the people you trust the most, Jack. They know your weaknesses. They know how to manipulate you, and they know how to take everything from you." Jack's expression shifted, the shock turning into something colder. "I'll deal with him," he said, his voice low, the steel in it unmistakable. But Anna could see the conflict in his eyes. She knew how much Mercer meant to him. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice gentle yet firm. Jack looked at her, his gaze softening. "Stay with me, Anna. You're the only one I can trust now." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. Anna wasn't sure what to say. There was something about Jack's vulnerability that made her feel closer to him, yet at the same time, it made her nervous. This wasn't just business anymore. She had known from the moment she stepped into his world that it would change her, but she hadn't anticipated just how much it would change her feelings for him. She wasn't sure how to separate the professional from the personal anymore. "I won't let you down," she said, her voice steady. Jack nodded and stood up, pacing back and forth in the small office. His mind was clearly racing, his thoughts consumed with what he had just learned. Anna watched him, her mind also spinning. She had never expected to get this involved. She had wanted to prove herself in the business world, to show that she was more than just a waitress. But now, she was entangled in something far bigger than herself. As Jack turned back to face her, his eyes met hers with a new intensity. "This is bigger than both of us, Anna. If we can't stop Mercer, we'll lose everything." His voice was grave, and Anna could feel the weight of his words. She nodded, understanding the magnitude of the situation. "We'll stop him," she said. And in that moment, she realized just how far she had come. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just someone who had fallen into this world by accident. She was a force to be reckoned with. And she wasn't going to let anyone, least of all David Mercer, destroy everything she had worked for. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and strategic moves. Anna had become Jack's right-hand ally, working tirelessly to track Mercer's every move. She uncovered more and more evidence, connecting the dots between Mercer's personal financial troubles and his covert dealings with the rivals who stood to benefit from the collapse of Jack's empire. But as they got closer to uncovering the full truth, the danger intensified. Mercer was no fool. He knew they were onto him, and he was prepared to fight back. One evening, as Anna was leaving the office, she received an unexpected call. It was from Jack, his voice urgent. "Anna, don't leave the building. We've got a problem." Her heart skipped a beat. "What's going on?" "Mercer knows we're onto him. He's making his move. I need you here now." Anna's stomach dropped. She rushed back inside, her mind racing with the possibilities. Jack had been right all along. This wasn't just a business deal. This was a war. And now, they were in the thick of it. When she arrived at his office, Jack was already there, his expression focused. "I'm going to confront him tonight," he said, his voice low. "But I need you to help me one last time. I need you to make sure no one else gets hurt." Anna nodded, determination setting in. She was in this to the end. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and she wasn't backing down now. Jack turned to her, his eyes filled with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "Thank you, Anna. You're not just helping me anymore. You're helping yourself too." For the first time, Anna allowed herself to believe it. This was her fight too. The hours before the confrontation felt like an eternity. Anna could feel the tension in the air as she walked through the sleek corridors of Anderson Capital's headquarters, her footsteps echoing in the silence of the late evening. Jack had called her back to his office, and she knew something big was about to happen. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the stakes had never been higher. Jack had become more than just a business partner to her. He had become something more, someone she couldn't quite define. She wasn't sure if it was the pressure of the situation, or if it was something else entirely, but the connection between them was undeniable. She had seen sides of him that no one else had. The vulnerability he had shown her, the way he trusted her when no one else could, had made her question everything. As she entered his office, she found him standing by the window, looking out over the city, his posture rigid. He looked deep in thought, as if the weight of the world was resting on his shoulders. Anna stepped forward, her presence barely noticeable at first, but Jack's head turned sharply at the sound of her footsteps. "Anna," he said, his voice hoarse, his eyes locking with hers. "I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I want you to know, I couldn't have done this without you." The words hit Anna harder than she expected. She had been so focused on the task ahead, on the mission to take down David Mercer, that she hadn't stopped to think about the personal side of this fight. "We'll handle it," she said, her voice steady, despite the storm raging inside her. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. "I need to confront Mercer. If I do this, it might mean losing everything, my reputation, my company. But if I don't do it, we'll lose everything anyway." Anna understood the gravity of the situation. She had seen Jack grow from someone who relied on calculated risk into a man willing to risk everything for something more meaningful than business. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, stepping closer. "I'm with you." Jack looked at her, his expression softened by gratitude, but his eyes still held a glint of determination. "I know. But tonight, it's not just about business. It's about trust. It's about loyalty. And I need you to stay out of this. I'll handle Mercer." Anna's heart sank at his words, but she knew Jack was right. She had to trust him. "All right," she said quietly. "But be careful. If anything happens—" Jack raised his hand, cutting her off. "I know. Just keep your phone close. And if anything goes wrong, I'll contact you." Anna nodded, her mind racing as she stepped out of the office. The evening air outside was crisp, and the sound of her heels echoed against the pavement as she walked towards her car. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the tension between her and Jack wasn't just about business anymore. The stakes had shifted, and she wasn't sure what this confrontation with Mercer would mean for their future. As Anna drove home, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Jack. "Meet me in 20 minutes. It's time." Her heart skipped a beat. She had prepared herself for this moment, but now that it was finally here, she felt a sudden surge of anxiety. She wasn't sure if it was the thought of the dangerous confrontation ahead, or the realization that her feelings for Jack had deepened more than she had intended. When she arrived at the meeting location, a private office near the outskirts of the city, she found Jack standing by the door, his face hard and unreadable. "Anna," he said, his voice quieter than usual, "I need you to wait outside. This is something I have to do myself." Anna hesitated, her mind racing. She wanted to help, wanted to be there for him, but she knew Jack needed to face Mercer alone. "I'll be right here," she said, her voice soft. Jack gave her a brief smile before stepping into the room. Anna stood by the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear muffled voices on the other side, but she couldn't make out the words. Minutes passed like hours as she stood there, waiting, her mind filled with thoughts of what could go wrong. The door suddenly opened, and Jack emerged, his face pale and tense. "It's done," he said, his voice strained. "He's gone." Anna's stomach dropped. "Gone?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What do you mean?" Jack didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and relief. "Mercer was the leak. He was working with our competitors. I had to make sure he wouldn't ruin everything we've worked for." Anna could feel her legs go weak. This was bigger than anything she had expected. She had known Mercer was dangerous, but she had never anticipated Jack would have to take such drastic measures. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack looked at her, his expression hardening again. "Now, we take control. We make sure this company stays ours. We finish what we started." Anna nodded, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that things had changed forever, not just for Jack and his empire, but for her as well. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and now, there was no going back. The days following the confrontation with Mercer felt like a whirlwind. Jack had done what he promised, but the fallout from his actions was far from over. The weight of the decisions he made had not fully hit him yet, but Anna could see the subtle changes in his demeanor. He was still the same Jack, the driven, powerful CEO she had come to know, but there was a coldness in his eyes now, a part of him that was shut off, as if the man she had trusted had become a different version of himself. Anna had been by his side through every decision, every twist in this journey, but now, she wasn't sure where she stood. She had helped him save the company, but at what cost? Was this really the path she wanted to follow, or was she just becoming another piece in Jack's chess game? The tension between them grew, unspoken but palpable. The business was taking up more of Jack's time, his focus entirely consumed by the new challenges that came with managing a company so vast, with so many moving parts. Anna kept her head down, focusing on the work. She had a new responsibility now, one that came with more power, more influence, but it also came with a growing distance from Jack. The trust they had built was still there, but something had shifted. She had become indispensable to him, but she could feel herself fading into the background of his life. It wasn't just about business anymore. As much as she tried to convince herself that she was fine with this, there was a part of her that wanted more than just being the silent partner in Jack's empire. But she couldn't deny the magnetic pull she still felt toward him. It was there in the way he looked at her when their eyes met, in the moments when his guard slipped, just for a second, revealing the vulnerability he had shown her that first night. But every time she allowed herself to believe in something more, she would retreat. She knew that Jack was someone who played the long game. He didn't let emotions get in the way of his goals, and Anna knew that in this world, that was the only way to survive. One evening, as the office cleared out for the night, Jack called her into his office. The atmosphere was different, more charged than it had been in days. She could sense the weight of his words before they were even spoken. "Anna, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice quiet but urgent. She walked into the office, feeling the familiar stir of nerves. "What's going on, Jack?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Jack gestured for her to sit. I've been thinking a lot about everything lately. About us. And about what happens next. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, dreading it, but still unsure of what it would mean. What do you mean, about us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair. I know things have changed between us, Anna. I know we've both been focused on the business, but, he paused, his gaze softening as he looked at her. I can't ignore what's happening between us anymore. I don't want to just be your boss. I want more. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Anna felt a rush of emotions, surprise, relief, fear, but she didn't know how to respond. She had been waiting for him to acknowledge what was between them, but now that he had, she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Jack, she began, her voice shaking slightly. We've been through so much together, but I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't want to risk what we've built, what we're building. Jack looked at her, his expression unreadable. I'm not asking you to risk anything. I'm asking you to trust me. To trust us. Anna felt her heart racing. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that there was more to this, but a part of her was scared. She had worked so hard to get here, to earn her place, and she didn't want anything to jeopardize it. I do trust you, Jack, but I can't deny that I'm scared. We're in uncharted territory now. Jack nodded, understanding in his eyes. I get it, but I don't want to keep running from this. I want you to be a part of everything, Anna. Not just the business, but everything. The weight of his words settled in her chest, and for the first time in a long while, Anna felt a sense of clarity. She had spent so much time focusing on the business, on proving herself, that she had ignored the feelings that had been growing between them. She had tried to bury them, to pretend that it was just about work. But now, Jack was offering her something different, something that could change everything. I don't know what this means for us, she said, her voice soft but steady. But I'm willing to find out. Together. Jack smiled, a look of relief washing over him. That's all I needed to hear. As she left his office that night, Anna's mind raced. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally in control of her own fate. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have it all. The following days after their conversation, Anna found herself reflecting on the decision she had made. Jack's confession, his vulnerability, had altered the course of their working relationship, but there was still so much uncertainty. Their lives, once so clearly divided between business and personal, were now inevitably intertwined. She couldn't help but feel a constant pull between the responsibilities of her role at Anderson Capital and the budding connection with Jack that she couldn't quite ignore. Every meeting, every conversation, now seemed to carry a different weight. Her thoughts constantly wandered back to him, and the moments when their eyes met, the subtle warmth that lingered between them. There was something about Jack that was irresistible. He had opened up to her in ways that no one else had seen, but the intensity of his focus on work, the ever-present pressure to lead, still defined him. She was still unsure whether she could truly balance both, her career and the growing emotions she was starting to feel for him. That afternoon, the tension in the air was palpable. The company was preparing for a major acquisition, and Anna had been tasked with overseeing a final review of the merger proposal before they presented it to the board. As she sat in the conference room, surrounded by files, charts, and projections, her mind kept drifting to the conversation she had had with Jack just days before. His words had stayed with her. I want you to be a part of everything, Anna. Not just the business, but everything. But what did that mean? Could they truly work together without it affecting their relationship? Anna wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. As she prepared to present the final review, Jack walked into the conference room. He was dressed in his usual sharp suit, his expression serious, but there was something different in the way he looked at her. For a brief moment, the rest of the room faded, and all she could see was him. Her heart raced, and she felt a sudden rush of uncertainty. Are we ready? Jack's voice cut through the silence, bringing her back to the present. She nodded, pushing aside her personal thoughts for the moment. Yes, she said, her voice steady. Everything checks out. We just need final approval from the board. Jack took a seat at the table, glancing over the proposal. His sharp eyes scanned the documents quickly, and Anna couldn't help but admire his ability to dissect everything so effortlessly. I trust your judgment, he said after a moment. his tone softening just slightly. "You've done an incredible job." Anna's pulse quickened. She wasn't used to receiving praise from Jack. It was always about the work, about the results, but this felt different. "Thank you," she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. But before she could say anything else, the door to the conference room opened, and the rest of the board members filed in. The atmosphere immediately shifted back to business. Anna sat up straighter, focusing on the task at hand. She couldn't afford to let herself get distracted. The meeting proceeded as planned, with the board members discussing the acquisition and finalizing the details. Anna's mind was sharp, her thoughts clear, but her focus kept drifting back to Jack. Every time their eyes met, she felt a spark, an unspoken connection that neither of them acknowledged in front of the others. The meeting dragged on for hours, but finally, they reached the end. The board had approved the acquisition, and the deal was sealed. As everyone filed out of the room, Jack lingered behind, waiting for Anna. She gathered her things and approached him. "It's done," she said, her voice a little tired but relieved. Jack smiled at her, a rare, soft smile that made her heart flutter. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said, his words sincere. "You're the reason this deal went through. You're the reason everything is falling into place." The words meant more to Anna than she could express. She had worked so hard for this moment, for the approval, for Jack's recognition, but there was something more that she needed from him. "Jack," she began, her voice wavering slightly, "I need to ask you something." He raised an eyebrow, his expression curious. "What is it?" Anna took a deep breath, her emotions bubbling to the surface. "You said you wanted me to be a part of everything. I'm asking you now, what does that mean? What happens after this?" Jack didn't immediately respond. He looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Finally, he stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "It means you're more than just a partner in business, Anna. You've become a partner in everything. In life. I don't want to keep pretending that it's just about the work. I want us to figure this out together. I want you in my life, not just in the boardroom." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had been afraid of this, afraid of the vulnerability that came with the truth. But now, standing in front of Jack, hearing him say the words she had been longing to hear, she realized that maybe she wasn't as afraid as she thought. Maybe, just maybe, she could have it all, the business, the success, and the love that had slowly blossomed between them. She looked up at Jack, her heart full, her mind clearer than ever. "I want that too," she said, her voice steady. "I want to figure this out with you." Jack smiled again, this time with more warmth, more promise. "Then let's take the next step together." As they stood there, their hands brushing against each other, Anna felt a sense of peace settle within her. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long while, she knew she was exactly where she needed to be. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind for Anna and Jack. Their relationship had shifted from professional to something far more personal, and while they were both navigating this new dynamic, there was still the constant pressure of the business weighing on them. The merger was complete, and the company had entered a new chapter, one that was full of promise, but also uncertainty. Jack had asked Anna to stay close, not just as a trusted business partner, but as someone he now saw as integral to his life in more ways than one. But even as their personal bond deepened, Anna couldn't ignore the tension that still lingered between them. Jack's ambition, his drive to succeed at all costs, sometimes felt like a wall she couldn't break through. There were moments when they would share a quiet dinner or late-night conversations, and Anna could see the vulnerability beneath Jack's tough exterior. But as soon as the conversation turned to business, that wall would go up again. Anna had become his confidant, his partner, but she knew that there was still a part of him that kept her at arm's length. She understood why, of course. Jack had built his empire by making hard decisions, by focusing solely on the task at hand. But that wasn't enough anymore. Anna wasn't just a business asset to him anymore, and she knew she couldn't stay in this limbo forever. One evening, as they were reviewing the company's next big move, Anna decided to confront the tension head-on. They were sitting in Jack's office, the lights dim, the city skyline outside the window a blur of motion. "Jack, we need to talk," Anna said, her voice calm but firm. Jack looked up from the paperwork he had been scanning, his eyes meeting hers. "About what?" he asked, his tone a little guarded. Anna took a deep breath, her mind racing with the words she needed to say. "About us," she replied. Jack sat back in his chair, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always been focused on the future, on the next deal, the next opportunity. But now, it seemed that the present, the life they were building together, had caught up with him. "What about us?" he asked quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "We've been so focused on the business," Anna began. "And I've been focusing on helping you succeed, on making sure everything runs smoothly. But I think we've forgotten to focus on what's right in front of us. I want more than just partnership in business, Jack. I want more than just being your colleague." Jack's expression softened, but he didn't speak right away. Anna could see that he was processing her words, his mind working through everything she had said. She knew this wasn't easy for him. Jack had built his empire by being the man in control, by keeping everything and everyone at arm's length. But now, that wasn't enough for either of them. "I don't want to lose this," Anna continued, her voice steady. "I don't want to be just another part of the machine, another thing you can check off your list. I want to know if this is real. If you're really willing to let me in, not just in business, but in your life." Jack's eyes softened, his gaze searching hers. For the first time, he didn't look like the confident CEO who had all the answers. He looked vulnerable, uncertain, and for a moment, Anna saw the man behind the business persona, the man she had begun to care for. He stood up from his desk and walked over to her, his steps slow, measured. "Anna," he began, his voice low, "I've been afraid. Afraid of letting anyone in. Afraid of losing what I've built. I've kept my distance because it's easier. But I've realized that what we're building together, it's not just about business. It's about us. And I can't keep pretending it's not." Anna's heart raced as she stood up to face him. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The wall between them was finally starting to crumble. Jack reached out, his hand brushing against hers. "I'm not perfect, Anna," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to try. With you. In every way." Anna looked into his eyes, the sincerity in them making her chest tighten. She had never expected this. She had never imagined that someone like Jack, someone so driven, so focused, would be willing to let down his guard. But here he was, offering her something real, something more than just business. "I want to try too," she said softly, her voice steady with conviction. Jack smiled, the weight that had been hanging over him for so long lifting just slightly. "Then let's do this. Together." In that moment, Anna knew that their relationship, both professional and personal, was about to change. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be challenges ahead. But they were both willing to face them, together. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she wasn't just a part of Jack's world. She was a part of his life, in every sense of the word. As they stood there, their hands clasped together, Anna realized that this was the beginning of something new. Something that went beyond business, beyond success, something that could change their lives forever. The days after their conversation felt both surreal and liberating for Anna. Jack's confession had shattered the walls between them, and for the first time in a long time, they were truly seeing each other. The balance between business and personal life had never been easy, especially in a high-stakes environment like theirs, but now, there was a newfound sense of understanding between them. Jack had always been driven by his ambition, his desire to control every aspect of his empire. But after everything that had happened, the betrayal from Mercer, the long hours they spent together, the walls he had so carefully built around himself were beginning to crumble. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she was finally allowed to be part of something more. The days at the office were filled with the usual hustle and bustle, but now there was a deeper connection between her and Jack. They worked side by side, not just as colleagues, but as something more. The shared looks, the subtle touches, the unspoken bond they had formed during the past few weeks, everything felt different. But as much as things had changed, Anna knew they still had a long way to go. Their relationship was uncharted territory, and while it was exciting, it was also complicated. Jack had trusted her with everything, his company, his future, and now, his heart. But Anna wasn't sure how much more she could give without losing herself in the process. One night, after a particularly exhausting meeting with investors, Anna found herself sitting across from Jack in his office, the weight of the day finally catching up to her. The room was dimly lit, the only sound coming from the soft hum of the city below. Jack was going over the final details of the latest acquisition, his eyes glued to the screen in front of him. But Anna couldn't focus on the numbers anymore. Her mind was elsewhere, her thoughts tangled up in the emotional complexity of everything that had happened between them. "Jack," she said quietly, breaking the silence. He looked up, his expression softening when he saw the look on her face. "What's on your mind?" he asked, setting the papers aside and giving her his full attention. Anna hesitated, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady but uncertain, "about what happens next. About us. I know we've been through a lot, but I'm still not sure if I'm ready for all of this. For everything that comes with being with you. Not just the business, but everything else." Jack listened quietly, his gaze never leaving hers. Anna could see the understanding in his eyes, the same understanding that had drawn her to him in the first place. "I get it," he said softly, leaning back in his chair. "This isn't just about us being together. It's about the world we've created. I know how hard it is to find the balance between business and personal life, especially with everything we've been through. But Anna, I want you to know that I'm in this all the way. I want to build something real with you, not just in business, but in everything. I'm not asking you to change who you are or what you want. I just want to know if you're willing to take that next step with me." Anna felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment that would define what came next. The fear that had been lingering in the back of her mind began to fade as she saw the sincerity in Jack's eyes. She had been afraid of losing herself, of becoming just another part of his world. But now, she realized that wasn't what Jack wanted at all. He wanted her as she was, strong, independent, and just as capable as he was. "I'm willing to take that step," Anna said, her voice steady now. "But I need to make sure we're both on the same page. I need to know that no matter what happens, we can still be honest with each other. That we won't let the business, the pressure, or anything else come between us." Jack smiled, and for the first time in a long time, Anna saw a genuine, unguarded smile on his face. "I promise," he said, his voice low but sincere. "We'll figure this out together. No matter what comes next, we'll face it as a team." The words hung in the air, a promise that felt more solid than any business deal they had ever made. Anna nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. They had crossed a line, but it wasn't just about love or business anymore. It was about trust, respect, and building something they both wanted. As they sat there, side by side, the future felt uncertain, but for the first time, Anna felt like she was ready for whatever it might bring. The balance between their professional and personal lives wasn't going to be easy, but they were both willing to put in the work. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, not just as business partners, but as something more. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she wasn't alone. Jack was with her, and that made all the difference. The following months passed in a blur of progress, setbacks, and triumphs. Jack and Anna had become an unstoppable force together, not just in the boardroom, but in every aspect of their lives. The company had grown even more powerful after the merger, and their partnership had proved essential in turning it into something even greater. But as successful as they were, the challenges didn't stop coming. Business never slowed, and with every new deal, they were faced with more risks. Yet, they had each other to rely on. They were no longer just colleagues, but partners in every sense of the word. They had learned how to balance their personal and professional lives, something that had seemed impossible at first. Anna had grown into a leader, her instincts for business sharper than ever, and Jack had come to trust her completely, in ways he never had before. Their bond had become something unshakable. One evening, as they sat together in Jack's office, reviewing the latest report, Anna looked up from the paperwork and met his gaze. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she said, her voice soft. Jack looked at her, a rare smile playing at the corners of his lips. "We have," he agreed. "And we're just getting started." It was true. They had built something incredible, something neither of them had imagined when they first met. They had started as two people caught up in a whirlwind of business deals and personal ambition. But now, they had created something that was their own. Anna had found herself not just in the business world, but in a life she had always dreamed of, alongside someone who truly saw her for who she was. Jack was no longer the detached CEO he had once been, driven solely by success. He had changed, and so had she. They had made each other better. As the days turned into weeks, Anna and Jack found more and more ways to strengthen their connection, both in business and in life. Their communication was clearer, their trust in each other unwavering. They faced challenges head-on, never backing down, but always supporting each other through it all. They knew the world they operated in was ruthless, full of people who would stop at nothing to take them down. But as long as they were together, they knew they could face anything. One afternoon, as they sat on the balcony of Jack's penthouse, the city skyline stretching out before them, Anna turned to Jack, her voice quieter than usual. "Jack, do you ever think about how far we've come? How much we've achieved?" He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "All the time. But I don't think we've really scratched the surface yet." There was a confidence in his voice, a certainty that made Anna smile. She had known that Jack was always thinking ahead, always planning for the next step. But now, in that moment, it felt like they had reached a place where they were no longer just chasing success. They were building a life together, a future that was theirs to create. "You know, I used to wonder if this was all worth it," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The late nights, the stress, the sacrifices. But now, I know it was." Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. "It was, and it will continue to be, because we're doing it together." The words settled in the air between them, the truth in them clear and undeniable. They had come through the fire together, facing down every challenge that came their way, and they had emerged stronger, both individually and as a team. Their love, their partnership, was not just built on business, but on something deeper, something unbreakable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden light over the city, Anna knew they were ready for whatever the future held. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with new obstacles, new challenges, but as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't face. Together, they had built an empire, but more importantly, they had built a life that was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night. Jack squeezed her hand, a silent promise that no matter what came next, they would face it together. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt truly at peace. The journey they had begun was far from over, but now, they had everything they needed to make it through. They were no longer just surviving. They were thriving, side by side. And that was just the beginning. In this touching story, we explore the journey of two ambitious individuals navigating the cutthroat world of business, while building a personal connection that transcends professional boundaries. Their relationship begins with a shared goal, but as they face challenges, their bond deepens, revealing the raw emotions and vulnerabilities that make their story truly touching. Through high-stakes decisions and emotional moments, this touching story shows how trust and loyalty can turn the most challenging circumstances into opportunities for growth. As their partnership evolves, the characters face personal and professional obstacles, yet their connection strengthens, making every moment a testament to their resilience and shared dreams. The touching stories of their journey highlight the transformative power of teamwork, love, and perseverance, showing that even in the most demanding of environments, human connections can thrive. This narrative is a beautiful reminder that, in the end, it is the touching stories of those who stand by each other that truly shape our lives.